Hello, everyone. How are you today? So now we are going to go into Module 2, and I will kind of go over the slide deck a little bit with you, provide a little bit of a lecture on that, and just kind of start with the module overview and the objectives. So let's take a quick look at our course level objective is to identify the social and economic impact of entrepreneurs in society. And here we have our module level objectives that align with this course level objective. We can see what activities we need to work through, and then we have an assignment, one assignment for this module. All right, so let's go ahead and get going. So here we are to read the Creators Code Chapter 2. We've already read the introduction and Chapter 1. Now we're going into Chapter 2, Drive for Daylight. And that is an interesting concept. We'll take a look and see what you think about that. Then here is the slide deck, which I'm going to go over with you. And then the theories and the opportunities, which is what this is, theories of entrepreneurship, the resources that we have available. There's a brief video here on creative destruction and the law of innovating large firms. And then here is another brief video on big ideas for 2020, technological breakthroughs and so forth. And here, this is really kind of interesting. This guy's really has some humor and drives a very interesting point regarding disruptive technologies. And there is a table of disruptive technologies here that you can download and view it while you're looking at the video. I think you'll find it interesting, and it's something good to kind of take a closer look at afterwards as well. Okay, so it has a powerful impact. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Oh, I'll just want to mention also the assignment. The only assignment for Unit 2 is to continue working on the Exam 1 review sheet to fill in the information as it relates to Module 2 on that review sheet for you. So you'll be ready to go when we have our first exam. All right, so now let's take a look at the slide deck here. And so I think this is not showing the right screen here. So let me just fix this. There we go. Okay, so all right, so now I believe everything is set up correctly now. Let's take another look. All right, so here, why theory is important, right? So we're looking at entrepreneurial theory, and then we're going to take that theory and apply it in a, as it relates to operating a business. So we have several tools in our toolbox that we will use in this class, and that will help us as we start to think about starting a business. And so let's take a look at some of the theories. There's lots of collections of theories, right? So there's, different theories of economics, anthropology, biology, chemistry. I mean, there's a gambit of many different types of theories. So we're focusing really on entrepreneurial theory and what it takes to be an entrepreneur. All right, so here's a very interesting quote by Isaac Newton. "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulder of giants." And that's really what research is all about, right? So we build on existing research, we build on existing knowledge. So others before us have found certain bits of or chunks of information, and also as it relates to entrepreneurship, and we build on that and we see what we can do to make things better and improve the situation. All right, so next, when we talk about a theory, we cannot, theories can only be falsified, right? They can't be disproven. They're just, it's either the theory is falsified or not falsified, but not proven. It's not proof. Theories are not proof. There's always an error of judgment. Okay, so there's an error that could pertain, and so we cannot say unequivocally that a theory is proven to be something. Okay, so it's also, a theory is not a personal hunch or a guess. It's, well, you might say it's an educated guess. It's a thought, it's a collection of ideas that you think may be the case, but you need to run tests and you build hypotheses, and you see if it can be falsified or not falsified. That's really what we're doing. Okay, so when we do hypothesis testing, we look at really the null hypothesis is what we look at. And sometimes, why are we looking at the null hypothesis? So what it is like, well, we have, all right, I have this idea for a hypothesis. So my hypothesis, for an example, may be, my research is on emotional intelligence and team performance. So I may say, well, you know, my hypothesis is that the level of emotional intelligence may impact entrepreneurs and their team performance. And so that would be my hypothesis. But my null hypothesis would be that there is no relationship between the level of emotional intelligence or high level of emotional intelligence and the high level of team performance within an entrepreneurial firm, which means that the alternative hypothesis would be that if there is a relationship. Okay, so why we do it this way, it's just the way it's done. We look at the null first, and we see if we can null that hypothesis, and then the alternative hypotheses would be the case. And then we test it by perhaps we have assessments such as surveys. We may, which is one of the standards for looking at hypotheses testing, okay, is survey data, large amounts of survey data, but certainly usually a sample size within a population and not surveying everybody. Okay, so that's how that works. So when we said, as I mentioned before about theory, hypothesis testing cannot be validated. We cannot say, now this is the proof, this is unequivocally the case. It's not. We either reject or we do not reject the null hypotheses. So that's what we're starting with. We're starting with the null hypotheses. We either reject it or we do not reject it. And so, but when we reject the null hypothesis, we don't prove anything. We don't prove that the alternative hypothesis is true. Okay, we can't say just because we've rejected the null hypothesis that now all of a sudden the alternative hypothesis is true, even though it is the opposite of the null. All right, it doesn't prove anything. It just really just lets us know that it is rejected. All right, that's all. We do not reject the null hypothesis. If we do not reject the null hypothesis, we do not prove that the null hypothesis is true either. Okay, so we just have to take proof and out of the equation when we're hypothesis testing. Okay, we are merely stating that there is enough evidence to behave one way or the other, and that there is or there is not a relationship. So when I'm doing my hypothesis testing on the relationship between the level of emotional intelligence and the team level of performance in an entrepreneurial firm, and let's say that my results come back, so my null hypothesis, there is no relationship, or there's a negative relationship. That might be my null hypothesis. But my alternative hypothesis would be that there is a relationship. So no matter what happens, nothing is proven. If the null hypothesis is rejected, that only means that there is a relationship between the alternative hypothesis and the data that I have collected. Okay, so that's how that all works. All right, so now general theory. So what basically is theory anyway? So what are we looking at for theory? So it's a statement of a relationship, like a hypothesis, between variables. the variables I mentioned before, right? The level of emotional intelligence is something that can be measured. So someone's level can be measured. And then also the level of performance can be measured as well. So they are measurable variables. And it will maybe explain a condition, how, when, why, and under certain circumstances that there is a relationship between these variables. So that it guides a strong reasoning, again, not proof, but it guides us in specific directions. There's descriptive and prescriptive types of theory, right? So when we look at descriptive, we're looking at starting with maybe an observation, observing how people react in certain circumstances, maybe classifying that information or making an association. Where prescriptive is really casual analysis, identifying anomalies or irregularities, making clear predictive hypotheses. So you can see a little bit of a difference there. Observation is, you may want to, like, let's say you go to a cafe and you want to see the behavior of people as they stand in line waiting to purchase their coffee, let's say, right? And so you're observing to see, that's a descriptive type of research. Whereas here, when we're identifying anomalies, is when we've taken maybe some survey data and we've looked at that data, and we can look to see if there is, once we run some statistical analysis, we can see if there's any irregularities. So that's how that works. Okay, look a little bit, if we look at the difference here, descriptive and prescriptive here, if we look at the theory of flight, something we can all relate to, right? So descriptive, how do objects fly? We can look at a dove flying, right? And compared to a penguin, penguins actually, well, they don't really fly. They can move a little bit. They can sort of like jump a little bit, wave the wings a little bit, but they're not actually, they don't take flight like a dove would, right? And so here we're prescriptive here. Best planes are designed with, what are they designed with? They're designed with the large wingspan, jet engines. It's taken time to get to this point, of course. And then why do planes crash? Here is an anomaly, prescriptive, right? Maybe we develop a causal link. What is the reason for plane crashes? And so we look very closely at that to see what has gone wrong. All right, so we can see here, we're observing here, descriptive, and here we're investigating it further. Again, here, a couple of examples here, descriptive. So how and why do organizations fly? Okay, a different type of flight, right? So here, descriptive being, well, here's Steve Jobs' home, where he started his business in 1976 in the garage of this very unassuming middle-class home. And then here, now prescriptive, Apple in 2018, and still is the case now, where here, this is a totally different type of environment, right? Okay, so when we're looking at theory, we're looking at the existence of opportunity, right? So we're looking at, can I create another opportunity, a new opportunity? Can I discover something new? Can I exploit an opportunity? There's great opportunity. I mentioned this in module 1, where we have, like, for instance, the pandemic, or we have situations where we have high inflation currently. Then how can we exploit that opportunity? What can we do to take advantage of that situation? We can we can allocate our resources differently, right? The example that I gave you with the restaurant owner, what she did was, instead of having people come to her because due to the pandemic, the business was closed, she went ahead and created meals and delivered them instead. And so that was a way to allocate those resources a little bit differently and take advantage of the opportunity. Entrepreneurial strategy, how do we strategize, how to link long-term goals to our entrepreneurial venture, organizing the process, taking the process and organizing it in bits and pieces as we're moving along the way. looking at our performance. And we also want to always think about, what is our exit plan? Anytime I start a business, I always think to myself, how will I exit this business? Is this a business that I want to start and build and then sell? Well, if that's the case, then I need to position my business in such a way that it is a saleable business. For example, I may not want to have a lot of tax deductions so that I have what overabundance of tax deductions like many entrepreneurs will do, so they pay very little taxes, but then you show very little income. So I keep my books very accurate and to the expenses that are real for the company. And then that way I have a larger revenue and larger net profit, which makes my business more saleable. So I think along those lines as I start a business. We have different ways of testing hypotheses. I mentioned, the survey data and running that through statistical analysis. So here are several methods we can take a look at, right? We can observe, we can question an idea or a problem, a phenomenon. Then we do our research for an existing answer or solution, or perhaps something different. We do form my hypothesis. So we have our hypothesis, what we believe might be the case. We place it in null and alternative format. We may have an experiment that we might want to do to see if what the results may be. We may test our hypotheses and draw some conclusions, and then we would share our results by perhaps writing a report or just, and we do a little bit of this, quite frankly, in the Scaling Ventures course. So where we take a look at a business, a real business, and we say, how can we scale this business? And we're looking at these different areas of how can we test a hypothesis, have an idea that might help the business to scale and grow, and then implement that. And so that's a fun course, and it's fun to actually implement this information. I'm going to do a very small bit of this hypothesis testing in this course, just to get a feel for it. So again, theory of hypothesis. I think most of you have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs here. So there may be opportunities found here, certainly at the psychological level, that where many people, and safety, those areas where people have, because of the pandemic, due to the pandemic, people have a fear of, that may not feel safe. That seems to be moving along now, but for the past 2 years now, many people felt unsafe leaving their home. And so what are the opportunities? What are the areas that could be exploited that may apply towards safety? And then you can go right up Maslow's hierarchy pyramid. So here, opportunities are created. They certainly are. How do you, how can you create an opportunity? Well, you would look to see what is going on, that there may be some way to tweak something. Certainly, I'm sure you have found yourself in situations where you're looking at a certain, where you want to get something done and you say, darn, if only I could get this, or if only this were this way. And that is an opportunity that could be created. So be mindful of those moments when you say to yourself, wow, I would love it if this could happen or that could happen. Because those are wonderful opportunities that you could create. So we're looking at opportunities that are found here. Okay, mattress companies. How many are there now? There are so many mattress companies, and there seem to be new ones coming out every day. They're not even all listed here. There are others, right? So many different types of mattress companies. So just making a tweak on something that is already there, trying to differentiate your mattress company different than all the other mattress companies out there, right? So that can be found. Created opportunities. Here is a company, Blue Ribbon Sports, selling Tiger shoes. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this company, but this started off as a small business, storefront selling Tiger shoes, which we probably have not heard of either, right? It was actually started as Nike. Okay, so this was an opportunity to take it to a totally different level. So there are many opportunities out there. So what we're looking for is really different sets of circumstances, right? We're looking at patterns, problems, trends, needs, gaps in the market. We're looking for ways to, exploit an opportunity. So here are theories of entrepreneurship, and starting with, many of you may know, The Wealth of Nations from Adam Smith back in 1776. Certainly, if you've taken any economics courses, you will know about The Wealth of Nations and the Invisible Hand, right, of Adam Smith. So that started the whole idea of entrepreneurship, right? Because starting a business, just to build a business and let the people come, supply and demand, right? So I create something, I put it out for you, and if you like it, then you buy it. So this was the essence of the original entrepreneur, right? From Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. Risk and certainty by Knight came up with an idea of like, well, what is the risk and the uncertainty involved with having entrepreneurial ventures, right? So that is something that, you have to be a risk taker in order to be an entrepreneur. Not necessarily, there's risk involved, but oftentimes it's calculated risk. It's educated risk. It's not blind risk. Okay, so we want to think in terms of what can we do? Yes, there's uncertainty, there's risk involved, but it's not blind risk. Okay, Essence of Entrepreneurship by Sumpeter came out in 1934. We'll go into his work a little bit beyond here. A Disruptive Innovation from Clayton Christensen in 1995. There's some interesting work from Clayton that we'll go into as well. Effectuation. So we will touch on that as well in this course and how that pertains to several different phenomena. So the entrepreneurial action again here from McMullen and Shippard, from 2006. So here, Calton from 1755, just before Adam Smith's, defines the role of entrepreneur in society: buy goods at known prices in the presence and sell at unknown prices in the future, right? So that sounds, whoa, that sounds very risky. But that was the definition at that particular time. All right, let's take a look at Joseph Sumpeter, excuse me, Essence of Entrepreneurship. So here, the creative destruction is the idea that he came out with as part of the opportunity is there waiting. It's waiting and waiting for you to conquer it. And that was his theory. It's just part of capitalism, right? So we always have where we're not necessarily destroying. What we're doing is making it better. We're making it different, right? So he used the term creative destruction as a catch term for to gain popularity. So here, when we look at creative destruction, it is social and economic structure is replaced by a more redefined ongoing entrepreneurial effort, right? So here, this will create structure. So that's the essence of creative destruction. So there's some information on that as well. So let's take a look at, here's a perfect example of creative destruction. Does anyone remember Blockbuster Video? So I can certainly remember going to a Blockbuster store and renting videos, VCRs, VHS videos actually, to put in my VCR, right? All over the shelves, and there were long lines, especially towards the weekend. And then you had to return them either the very next day, or there would be a financial penalty if you did not return it right away. and this was very cumbersome, but very popular for a long time. All of a sudden, Netflix came on the market, right? So Netflix really created it was a creative destruction with what Blockbuster was doing. They thought, well, why don't we just have an easier, more convenient way to offer movies? And then, of course, you can see we've even developed beyond there. Netflix has even gone to streaming videos and so forth and so on. So it is, it's constantly evolving. All right, so here we'll take a look at, we're talking about videotape industry, right? So here with Blockbuster, you can see they were very, very popular around, 1998 to very close to 2000, right? And then we started having a little bit of disruption, and then all of a sudden, about 5-8 years later, then it just progressively just got down to nothing. So I actually had a friend who had a Blockbuster franchise back really probably right along this time here, around 1995 area. Built it up and then sold it just in the nick of time, just before 2000, before things started getting very disruptive. So here, we can also let you know that really every 4 firms on the Fortune 500 list did not exist 30 years ago. That's very interesting, isn't it? So what does that tell you? Does that tell you that small businesses grow quickly, much more quickly than larger firms? Indeed, they do. So they, the Fortune 500 companies, the largest firms, the largest 500 firms did not exist 30 years ago. So those are new startups, younger companies. And so it's more difficult for larger companies to grow substantially. The small companies are the ones that really have the major growth. So here, creative destruction as far as social is concerned, we all know Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook, and now I think he's called it Meta, right? But still it's referred to as Facebook, owned by Meta. So before, how did we interact with people? How do we stay connected, send messages and so forth? We're a bit spoiled now with social media, and not just Facebook. It goes well beyond that, right? So we have Twitter, we have TikTok, we have Instagram, we have so many different resources that we use to reach out to our social network. And so what did we do in the past? We would just pick up the phone, right? I remember when I had a car phone back in 1988. I had one of the first in my area to have a car phone. I believe, I'm trying to remember now, I think that car phone cost me $2,400, and I could only use it while I was driving my car or my car was turned on. So I had that car phone because I needed it for business, because I was running all over the place and I needed access and I was driving a lot. So I actually financed that back in that time. That's pretty funny. So now we usually get our phones included with our plans. It's a phone that we can carry around with us anywhere we go, very, very disruptive type of environment in technology for certain. So here, just a quick image to just let you know about the speed of disruption. This has gone on even faster here. We look at the telephone, took 75 years. We look at Angry Birds, 35 days, right? And that is because of the internet and because things can come about for us very, very quickly. And so Facebook took 3.5 years, but now Angry Birds only took 35 days to take hold. All right, so given this data, what predictions do you think you might have for any type of social or economic progress within the next 50 years? Something to consider while we're moving forward with this course. And it also helps you come up with some ideas of, well, what do you think really will happen over time? All right, so I want to thank you for listening, and I will move on to the next module.